So I think this is a good video to make. You are going to see that no matter what the situation, some fans just have insane takes. And of course you're allowed them, and more power to you, and while I'm sure some of it is grifting, the latest one that has been doing the rounds is that Stone Cold Steve Austin was overrated. You heard that right. The greatest of all time. Now, I am not saying that he had to be your guy. Far from it. The beauty of life is you get to follow your gut. We still have eyes and ears. Some people are just undeniable, and you do not change the wrestling business by fluke. There's a reason it goes down. As always, we do have to turn to one of the best of all time to start this right, because Bret Hart had a very good system to rate wrestlers. It's not particularly nuanced, but sometimes simple is the best. The Hitman would essentially go to his 3 markers as to what makes a sports entertainer and rate somebody out of 10. So 1, do they have the presence or the right look? He used Hulk Hogan as an example because, of course, bad person he may be, but it takes one glimpse to be taken in by this guy. It's like a real-life superhero. And number 2 on the list, the promo. Or can somebody talk? Amazingly, the Hitman used Hogan again for this and gave him a 10. Hulkamania was relied on constantly to talk people into the buildings, and for a good chunk of time, that's what Hogan did. He wasn't scared of the microphone. Third up, we have wrestling ability. This is the most subjective of the lot, but we can stick with Bret here. No big surprise. He didn't think Hulk could really go when the bell rings, so we gave him a 2. Again, that's up to you, but it sort of works. At least it gives you an idea. Hart was an equal opportunity so-and-so though, so for more evidence, he went after his own hero, the Dynamite Kid. He got a 10 in the ring, but a 2 on promos, and some people thought that was too harsh, but we have laid down a foundation. I suppose a more recent example of this would be Jey Uso, who just divides opinions all over the shop. His in-ring gets questioned all the time, but do not walk into my house and tell me he's not a superstar. Don't connect with the audience and get those kind of reactions by accident. Second time I've said that. It's truly next level stuff and something WWE jumped on too. You gotta give them credit there. That was not always a thing. The reason we throw him in there as well is because it does all connect. There was a big old thread with hundreds of thousands of replies of people saying, well, you know, Jey Uso is a star, but what other superstars have there been who kind of fit into the same category? And that's when we got the name Stone Cold Steve Austin. I mean, what are we doing here? Now look, I like Jey a lot. He is one of my favorites right now, and I truly enjoy his matches. His rival with Gunther has totally rocked, and I enjoy his big word, or yeet. But to act like Steve Austin is in the same conversation, well, that's a little bit mad, because no, just no. So to continue on how we have started, let's use Bret's system for fun. Of course, all wrestlers have to develop a good look. It's where the idea of the airport test came from. That's a bit overdone, but it sells the concept well. Because if you can set yourself apart so that somebody looks at you as you walk down a hallway, well, you're halfway there, and yes, that's what Bon Jovi was singing about. You also want to be sort of iconic so people can't copy you, and that is Austin. If you turn up with a bald head and a goatee, you're instantly going to get comparisons. I think Steve himself looked at what had come before and pop culture and kind of just went the other way. So rather than over-the-top costumes or tassels, he was going to wear black trunks, black boots, and just come across like a killer. That was the original idea for the gimmick too. It was based on a real-life murderous criminal, as simple as it was unforgettable. The knee brace he needed sort of worked as well because he was like a hardened warrior who wouldn't quit. It's like having an eye patch in the movies. The dude is just cool, or maybe even a pirate. Even his entrance leather waistcoat that he wore bare-chested was a mad choice, but again, Austin made it work. Because he did pull it off, we didn't even question it. I also go back to the bald head for obvious reasons, but that did make him look meaner, and it just felt like he didn't care about impressing you. That was a huge plus and tied directly into the gimmick. I suppose the somewhat open nature of how he did come across allowed millions of people to copy and paste themselves onto his frame. They could pretend to be Austin too. And you may laugh at that, but trust me, if you were the right age, you were walking down that corridor shaking your head. Steve also had that glare that made you think he was unhinged, and his facial expressions were on point. He could somehow convey all of the emotions, which made that stare even better, and if he did laugh or show some sign of affection, because it was super rare, it hit harder. We weren't used to it, and the peak, of course, was the, well, you just flubbed up eye that he would give someone. And then he went and backed it up. Austin had the physique too, and as a man who met him during his peak, he is way bigger than you'd think. It was so easy to believe he could kick somebody's ass, but he was not cartoonishly sized. Go back to what we just said, he needed some sort of an everyman quality, and he just ticked all of those boxes. I don't think the Rattlesnake getting one over Vince McMahon every week works if he looks like the Ultimate Warrior, but you could still look at him and go, well, quite clearly he is jacked, but I bet he likes one of those beers he talks about all the time. And don't forget that was part of the allure too. So I think that's enough of that one as we do on to part 2. Promos. Don't even pretend. Don't start with me. He is an all-time stick man, to use the terms, and it likely came to light for most people when in 1996 he said, if you put an S in front of Hitman, you have my feelings on one Bret Hart. It was genius, and for the time, sheesh, especially in the WWF, nobody said things like that. It was so rare to hear it directed at somebody like Bret Hart too, and there was no pretense here. You believed he meant it, and he just hated this dude. If you wanted to buy into the disdain, you could, and go and watch the build to that year's Survivor Series if you need evidence. It's basically where this Stone Cold character goes into 5th gear. Austin got every step right. Dare I say it, his promos were unmatched. In 1996 too, you get the 316 speech, which essentially would change the game forever. It was after Steve had defeated Jake the Snake Roberts in the King of the Ring tournament, and he just went off on him. He was essentially referencing Jake's past personal issues before telling you what was next. No one talks about this next point. He only talks for like 2 minutes. That's it. And he still shifted wrestling at its core. It's also where he throws in, that's the bottom line. So that's 2 catchphrases born, and the sheer intensity of it. It's important to always remember that Austin didn't become a megastar for another 18 months. It wasn't the next night on Raw like some people pretend, but it was the building blocks. We were getting started. Stone Cold was doing this everywhere too, because he would even go on Livewire, which nobody remembers as a show today, and cut promos of the year. You would need to find the episode and watch the clearly improvised response when some fan rings up and criticizes Steve for his foul language. They even say, this is going to hinder your future in the WWF. Without missing a beat, Austin replies, I will hinder your life. He was properly outraged too. The best. And a crime. You can't threaten people like that. The amount of sound bites he left us with too were just ridiculous. And then, yes, there's what. I know it ruins many a segment these days, but trust me, it's Steve Austin. If anybody else had come up with this, it would have died a long time ago, but nothing Austin ever did was for the short term. He was a generational talent, and that means his influence lasts longer after he stepped away. Let us not gloss over how bizarre this all was as well. I'm gonna go out to the ring and just ask myself what after my own questions. That never should have worked, and it's super strange, but that's Austin. The delivery, the belief, somehow being the most serious man ever, even when he was hilarious. I'm gonna be that guy. He was one of a kind. The creative wasn't always ideal, but that wasn't on him. Let's not forget that's what eventually convinced him to walk away for a mini hiatus. But when he was on fire, the man was untouchable. I think it's just a fact. We now continue to go up our numbers like it is Sesame Street because we get to in-ring ability. I mean, trigger your brain to remember that Austin changed the WWF main event scene after WrestleMania 14 because he understood the whole game needed to evolve, but it also came down to the fact he did have his injured neck. You have to talk about this. Because before he got dumped on his head, everybody saw it, especially Paul Heyman. The way he hit the ropes, that intensity again, how easily he moved around the ring. Austin was pointed out as a wrestling prodigy when he was in WCW because he was that good. This isn't hidden either. You can see it. There's matches, clips. He knew the audience he was working in front of. So if the crowd was old school NWA fans, well fine. They love work rate, so I'll work. He was also part tech and part brawler, the latter of which he would focus on once he did get hurt. But then there's everything with Ricky Steamboat too. He went beat for beat with the Dragon, and afterwards Steamboat even told Austin, wow dude, you're great. I mean, that is one of the best ever. It's quite the endorsement. Austin also wrestled like he wanted to win, and that if he lost, the world would end. That's what some fans say is missing today, the desire to be successful and the selling of frustration when you don't. I suppose you could say the peak of this was that 1996 and 1997 period, because now he had the character down too. He would mostly aggressively kick your ass, but if he needed to, he had other tools in his arsenal. Do you remember what the WWF dubbed him before he evolved into all of this? The Ringmaster. Now that gimmick sucked, but he got it because of his in-ring ability. Nobody sold stuff more than Stone Cold either, which of course was the heart and soul of WrestleMania 13. Fans connected with Austin because of how he reacted to what was happening. I mean, he was getting smashed for large parts of this, but he never gave up. He fought through the pain. The crowd could see that Steve was in agony, but he just had this way where he could keep going. So what did we all say to ourselves? Well, what a badass. He was also eternally pissed off that somebody had gotten the better of him. His physical highs were then cut short after the Owen Hart piledriver at SummerSlam, and yeah, Austin broke his neck. Now, the positive part of that, for lack of a better term, is that Steve stayed on TV and got this new character across. And when he could go again, he tapped into the zeitgeist whether he meant to or not. He just started to destroy everybody in the simplest way possible, with young teens the world over seeing it and going, man, this dude is super whooper cool. They didn't want or need drama, they wanted action. So you could call it a happy accident, but I think Austin was so savvy with wrestling he just figured it out. Really, however, it worked for one specific reason. Steve only had one gear, which was the all-out gear. He had cardio wars with Kurt Angle and The Rock, and even when it fell down a little bit, like his SummerSlam 1998 feud with The Undertaker, it was still over. Fans still cared, and even when the Attitude Era was in full swing and he started to rely on his greatest hits, we were all fine with it. He was a barrel of fun to watch, intense to a fault, and he always got the most out of the least. And that is not to say there weren't elements of his game that weren't 100%, but that's the case for every single performer on the planet. Any weaknesses were Paul Heyman's as he focused on his strengths, and look at the total body of the work. It's actually hard to find an Austin match where the crowd isn't losing their minds, even if sometimes Stone Cold was potatoing his opponents. Go ask Dwayne. So if we are using that scale, I would whack him at a 10, but I honestly don't think you can go lower than a 9. Not when you whip the fans into a frenzy like this. I'm not even sure it ties into the category, but his major weakness really was his paranoia. He will tell you that too, because years of other wrestlers stabbing him in the back, job done. He didn't trust anybody, and he literally wrote it on his entrance jacket. It could also be why he went out of his way to not drop the WWF title to Triple H at the 1999 SummerSlam. He actively made sure that didn't happen. There's actually more we can do here too, because Bret has arguably stayed away from the most important category, the box office drawing power. The business has changed today, sure, but in a world where the top guy was expected to bring in the money, find me another Steve Austin. You've got Hulk Hogan this side of the pond, and that could be it done. Hulkamania certainly lasted for longer, and of course Hulk also exploded as a heel in WCW. When the WWF tried that with Austin, it did not work, because people just wanted to cheer the guy. Ric Flair was a monster draw for years too, and then you've got Bruno Sammartino, king of the sold-out arena. He drew a crazy amount of consecutive full houses, but Steve was in a different position. The WWF in 1997 needed a new star to turn business around and kick WCW's ass, and Austin was almost that guy single-handedly. From 1998 for a solid few years, he drew monster numbers, and he changed the merchandise game forever. And I know some of the people mentioned weren't able to take advantage of the pay-per-views like those in the late 90s, but compare Austin's numbers with his contemporaries. Actually don't, I'll tell you here, Steve wins by miles. You could even spin that kind of idea and say that Stone Cold had to remain relevant with weekly TV too, because we saw many individuals grow stale from being overexposed. That wasn't the case with the Rattlesnake. Even if he walked out multiple times in one evening, the place would lose its mind. He even broke the record number of buys for WrestleMania and was the first to draw a 7-figure amount. Let us also throw out there the 9.5 rating him and The Undertaker got on the June 28, 1999 episode of Raw. We're living in different times, but imagine someone did that today, Reddit would explode. It also means Stone Cold is responsible for the highest rated segment in the history of wrestling on cable TV. The man is the dude, or something. There was also something relatable about Austin in general that holds up right now. You could take his character and what he did, plonk it in a 2025 world, and people would love it. I mean, if we did the same with the 1980s Hogan, I don't know, man. I kind of feel like it would be of its time. Stone Cold doesn't. And sure, that likely doesn't apply to the many times his matches were there to fuel forward angles. That was just a staple of the Attitude Era, and sometimes you will scratch your head. We go 3 minutes to go 3 minutes next week as Vince McMahon thinks of ways to kill him. If we did have a time machine, Steve would just shift to what we do know wrestling is right now, and Stone Cold as an entity would be fine. And how many people do we see all the time try to replicate what he did? The answer, in case you don't know, is a flubbing lot of them. Nearly all of his pay-per-view matches hold up too, because Austin was very keen on making these feel like massive deals. So after one video package and his serious face, you are just dragged in. This means something, and if wrestling is about emotion, bingo, there it is. Even his entrance theme is better than what we're currently getting, although that's just the general trend. It could still work as something contemporary though, and again, as a comparison, if Hulk Hogan walks out with Real American, you know what period we're trying to ape. I would go as far to say Stone Cold would have worked across the landscape too. He would have been fine in New Japan, would have been fine in JCP, and he did do it in ECW. We saw it. Paul Heyman even cut a promo about it. Steve Austin was built in Extreme Championship Wrestling. If the Bionic Redneck had been born a few years later, he would have been totally okay in Ring of Honor too. Austin understood what this industry was. I'm now going to add another category in there because I am out of control. Cultural significance. Austin's popularity got to such levels that he broke through that barrier into the mainstream. Everyone knew what Austin 316 was, and stunners were being hit across the world. I even remember being bullied for liking wrestling in school, and as soon as Stone Cold blew up, it totally changed. All of a sudden, these assholes were coming to me, asking for the grappling information. That's the reach he had. Throughout 1998 and 1999, he was even doing the talk show circuit in America, and go and watch The Good Place, a Netflix series from 2016. The writers there must have grown up loving this guy. There's Austin references all over the place. He had such appeal, Hollywood was happy to give him plenty of roles when he hung up the boots, and you could even get super niche with this, as we bring in series Hot Ones, which yes is the YouTube show where famous people eat spicy chicken wings. Steve's episode has 27 million views, way more than Ashton Kutcher, and slightly more than Shia LaBeouf and Aubrey Plaza. In case you care, he is number 9 in the most watched list. Now sometimes the weird comeback to that from people is, well, he's not as big as The Rock. And no, he's not. But that's like getting mad that your burger is nicer than my pizza. We're all still having a good time. The headline is, Austin was massive. Steve's CV continues as well because he had the great feuds too. It's often been said you're only as good as who you're in the ring with, and Austin was fine with that, and it goes back miles. We've talked about Ricky Steamboat, and that's something you should go and watch if you're able. It will blow your brain and show you how early Stone Cold was Stone Cold. Or something. His war with Bret Hart is among the best ever, at least for mine money, and was the start of what the Attitude Era was going to be. And of course, we all know about what he did with The Rock, and that build to WrestleMania 17. Incredible. It was big, bombastic TV which appealed to people far outside the wrestling circle. This is all before saying the name Vince McMahon. You know the deal. It was the program which drew millions every single week. You can also break all of this down into moments too. The bedpan on Vince's head when he was in the hospital, Jim Ross shouting Tyson Austin, telling The Rock he needs to beat him, the beer bath, that all-time pop when he helped Mankind win the WWF title, all the McMahon stunners. It'd be boring, but I could do this all day. And as a fan base, we're always talking about these wrestling moments, but Austin was far more concerned with just tapping into a fan's emotion that would then become a moment, as opposed to forcing it. Not all of them worked, of course. That Ministry of Darkness stuff was bizarre then and totally insane now, but this only comes when you pour over every single detail. I'm going to go back to the headlines again. He's just an all-timer. It's why the dreaded heel turn actually adds to his cause too. It was terrible for business, and you'd be silly to say otherwise, but it was great for Austin's range. He showed he could play different variants of his character, and the paranoid long-distance stare I want to hug the bad guy look was hilarious. Like anything else, Steve brought in 100%, and he made you laugh out loud. He was unhinged before unhinged. You can even go back before this too to watch his stunning Steve gimmick in WCW, which is just a different level of cockiness. Could even call him a pretty boy, and look, he made it click. There's a reason the old guard blocked Austin and Brian Pillman's Hollywood Blondes push. They were threatened by them. Game always knows game. The man was also funny and often could make you laugh out loud, so let's just say the word again, range. He just had it all in droves, so if you want to talk about the best all-rounders ever, I'm putting forward this guy. I'm 99% sure in a game of Trump Trumps, if I get Stone Cold Steve Austin, I'm gonna win. So I'm happy to stand here and say I think Steve Austin was a 10 in every category. Yep, or as close to it anyway. The Rock is up there too, of course, and if you wanted to do a deeper dive, there's Kurt Angle, Eddie Guerrero, and I'm sure a bunch more. There's also guys that are doing it right now, but it's so much easier to judge when a career does come to an end, and given that, we are keeping it simple. Stone Cold Steve Austin has the best case to be the USA's greatest of all time. And I will leave you with that, and I'll see you in the comments. I love you lots. Goodbye. Please also, when you are down there, like the video, share the video, and subscribe, and click the video on the screen, because maybe it will make you like me just a little bit more. That's okay, I can get over it either way. And otherwise, my friends, have a delightful day, and I will talk to you again very soon.